They
Everyone's
want
at
to
the
hear the
block
other
parties.
people. Well, yeah, that's true.
I forgot. I wasn't going to make it to that anyway. I was invited.
Are we starting at 6?
Good evening, everyone in the audience and the four candidates, our first grouping for the mayoral forum, sponsored by the Cheyenne League of Women Voters. Welcome to tonight. As we explained before, there are three candidates who cannot show up tonight. So we have the 8 candidates for mayor who are going to participate in the forum tonight. 4 selected at random, the groupings. The 4 before you, Richard Johnson, Stephen Gannison, Rex Wild, and Albert Romso will be the first up, and then we will ask a series of questions. There will be a few from the audience, as much as we have time. And then the second grouping will be up at 7:30. We will ask the same questions. Of course, the mix of personalities and informational will make each session a little bit different. My name is Marguerite Herman. I'll be the moderator tonight. And just as a bit of information, Charter Communications, we're here in the City Council chambers, and I guess I should stop and thank our member from the City Council and City Government for letting us use this wonderful facility. Part of the benefit of that is Charter Communications is going to record this whole evening and make it available 2 ways later on. We have rebroadcast dates on channel 192, and those will be on our Facebook page. We've handed out those dates. They're posted up here just real briefly. The mayor race tonight will be rebroadcast on next Tuesday and every Tuesday after that at 6 o'clock before the election. And then tomorrow night, we'll have Ward 1 in 2 sections because there's so many candidates. And on Thursday of this week, we'll have Wards 2 and 3. Again, those will have broadcast dates mentioned. And we'll put those in the newspaper. We have them on our Facebook page. For your information, the rebroadcast dates for the mayor is on Tuesday. Ward 1 will be at 6 p.m., same time, again, same channel, 192, on every Thursday until Election Day. And then Wards 2 and 3 will be rebroadcast this coming Saturday at 11 o'clock and every other Saturday at 11 o'clock until Election Day. And Election Day, by the way, is August 16th. Early voting has begun in the atrium and by mail, but that Election Day is August 16th, and so you'll be able to have many opportunities to see this. And then Charter Communications will also put an audio file on, actually an MP3 file online, and so you can watch it on YouTube, or you can watch the rebroadcast. So many ways to follow this at the evenings. Our candidates sharing their message with the public. So again, welcome to everybody in the audience. Welcome to our 4 candidates and our first groupings. And just as a word of the format, we'll have a minute and a half to opening statements. We'll have a minute and a half to answer the questions, followed by a 15-minute optional comment period if someone wants to comment on something someone else has said. And then we'll move on to the next question. There'll be a minute and a half for closing. And then at the end of the evening, candidates who want to stick around and listen to the other group, they're all welcome to come back on the dais and make a summing up statement, maybe make a reference to something someone else has said. So it's really going to be kind of an open mic kind of thing at the end of the evening, and people who want to stay. And if you can't, again, you can watch it on TV later or online. So that being said, there are a couple of league members with index cards. If, as the evening progresses, you think of a question, raise your hand. They'll come by and give you a card, and you can put a question on there. Meanwhile, we'll start with some questions that have been written by the Cheyenne League of Women Voters, and we think they cover some important issues. So we'll start, I guess, first of all, by the opening statement, and we'll start with Mr. Johnson. And again, a minute and a half. Thank you.
Well, you don't have to worry about me speaking that much from up here because I never do. I'm a city councilman from Ward 3 currently, Richard Johnson. I am also the reservations manager at Great Lakes Airlines. And after I posted a meme of Nikolai Tesla a couple of days ago, somebody actually sent me a better quote that kind of justifies how I am seen in the community. The power of a bold idea uttered publicly in defiance of dominant opinion cannot be easily measured. Those special people who speak out in such a way as to shake up not only the self-assurance of their enemies, but the complacency of their friends are precious catalysts for change. And that pretty much sums me up.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And just as a word, you won't find his name on the ballot. Mr. Johnson is running as a write-in candidate, so thought I'd mention that.
But at least you invited him, and that is great.
Well, thank you. Mr. Gannison, when you're ready, a minute and a half.
Hello, my name is Stephen Gannison. I have been working for the city. I'm vested 25 years sanitation worker. I also serve on the board for the Housing and Community Development Office, which in turns we get money from federal government, and we do give that money out to the community, to community shelter. We give to Habitat. We also do Climb Wyoming. We support people with jobs. We feed the homeless. We shelter the homeless. This community, the board that I'm on, actually plays a vital role in the city of Cheyenne. And I've been doing that for 18 years, free of charge. No one's asked me to pay me. I just done it out of my own love and out of my mother's respect, who told me, when you get involved with something, stick to it. Something you like, do. And something you like and you do, you'll always be successful. And so I'm here as a candidate to change, future change for Cheyenne, for the youth. Also for the citizens of Cheyenne, bring back unity in the community, and a strong police force. We must have a strong police force. I'm here also to make sure and ensure the safety of all citizens, no matter color, creed, or nationality, or gender.
Thank you. Mr. Wild, minute and a half.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Rex Wild. I've been a resident here for 31 years. The reason I'm running for mayor is because I want to give back to the community. I've had 2 daughters born here. I buried a son here. I'm a veteran. I was in the United States Army. I served in the 509th Battalion Combat Team in northern Italy for 3 years. Then I came back and spent my last year with the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And then I got out and didn't really have any place to go, and I was an Air Force brat. My dad had retired here from F.E. Warren. So I came home with my wife, and anyway, I joined the 1022nd Medical Detachment here for 2 years, and that I'm a cabinet maker, been a cabinet maker all my life, and went to LCCC. I have an associate's degree in arts and sciences, and in 1986, I was getting ready to go over the hill to finish my education, and I got the call from Italy that a guy wanted me to come back and work at his winery. I went back to Italy for 3 years, packed up my family, my dog. We all went back and lived there for 3 years on the economy. I'm bilingual. And anyway, then came back to the United States, and I've been here ever since. And thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. And Mr. Ramsa, minute and a half.
Hi, I'm Albert Ramza, and I'm running for mayor because since I've moved to Cheyenne when I was 3 years old, and I'm 23 now, it's always seemed like the mayor and the city have failed in aspects that I think are important. And I feel that I would be the best candidate to fix what I think needs to be fixed. So that's my piece.
Okay, thank you. Short and sweet. So, and as we head into the questions, just as a word of background about the office of mayor, Cheyenne has a strong mayor form of government, governing departments that include public safety, personnel and administration, parks and recreation, street and traffic, and public utilities. The mayor also is the 10th member of the governing body that approves mayoral appointments, city budgets, and ordinances. The job pays $95,000 a year. The current mayor reports spending 80 to 90 hours a week on the job. That's just a little framework for the questions coming up. And we'll start with Mr. Gannison. We'll kind of alternate the beginning order of this. And again, the responses are a minute and a half. And then when all is done, we'll give everybody an optional 15 minutes to comment or to add to what they've said before. The City of Cheyenne is a complex organization that operates in a complex environment. In some cities, the mayor may be a figurehead, but not Cheyenne. Using a range from 0 to 100%, indicate how much you think you will need to learn to be an effective mayor. Where do you fall on that?
To be an effective mayor, I'd first like to say all of us, this is going to be our first time being mayor. So we're all going to go in looking at this thing at different aspects, and we're all going to have to learn at some point what we're doing. And at some point, we're going to all have to develop skills. So I look at that as I'm going to give it 100%, do the best I can, figure out and learn everything I need to learn. It's easy to sit up here and say, but until you actually get in and see what's going on, it's really just, you're in the dark. You're just hearing from other people. So I feel that I have to get there and get in order to make a conscious decision and the right decision on what I'm going to do or how we're going to work together. First off, you need to build that bridge, that gap between the council and the mayor. That's the first thing that has to happen because there's no communication. It's a lack of respect on one end or both ends at that matter. So until you bring that gap and get that free flow of information going between the two entities, you're always going to have problems. But I will give 100% and I will work on the things that I need to work on when I get there.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Wild, do you want to hear the question again, or do you?
Yes, would you
All
please
righty,
repeat the
great.
question?
City of Cheyenne is a complex organization that operates in a complex environment. In some cities, the mayor is a figurehead, but not Cheyenne. Using a range from 0 to 100%, indicate how much you think you will need to learn to be an effective mayor.
Well, 100%. That's a no-brainer there. The one thing that I do know is that the mayor and the city council have not worked together in the past, and it's very important for a mayor to work with the city council because the bottom line is to do what is right for the people of this historic city, to do things that need to be taken care of, not to be coming through loggerheads and things like that. And it's always good to work with each other. You have some egos in the past that have not worked very well together, and I can get along with anybody, and 100%. That's
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramsa, on a range from 0 to 100%, how much do you think you come into this office knowing or needing to learn to become an effective mayor?
Well, I think I need 20%, I'd say. I think I know what I want to get done as mayor, which, if you haven't seen my Facebook page, Albert Ramza for mayor. One of the first things I want to do is I want to expand the city limits, bring in more tax, provide more jobs. I want to fix downtown area. It's in shambles for the most part. There are empty buildings that are falling apart, and we need to fix that. We need to fix the roads. We have plenty of ideal locations for events throughout the year, whether they be concerts or fairs or just get-togethers that we should be using as the city that we aren't. And I would like to make the city more environmentally friendly. And I think once you know what you want to do, once you know who you have to work with, which we're going to learn who's going to win the city council, then you basically know what you got to do. The only 20% is you have to admit when you don't know everything. And I already know I don't know everything. I'm going to put people in place that are going to help me with the knowledge that I do lack. So that's where the 20% I think is going to come in.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I'm already here, and so I guess if I have any conflict with the mayor currently on any given day, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with it. Rick and I, and that's one thing that comes with Scott, Rick, and I. That's something that comes with Jim, Scott, and I. Since we're already on council, we already know what goes on with Mayor Kaysen. And when it comes down to it, on day one, I could say I could have no errors. I mean, it's pretty much going to be pomp and circumstance. It's going to be ceremonial. I've already, done the Robert's Rule of Order up here. But I basically picked on day 164. I might have all new experiences, and I might require 100% education. And as far as effectiveness, I'm not much in favor of that word, because I could say that I was currently the most effective city councilman up here, and 1,000 people or thousands of people in this community would basically say, no, you're not. You're the worst thing that was ever elected to this city. But then on the other hand, or the other side of the coin, I would have several thousand people that would say, yes, you are the best person that's ever been, and you're the most effective. I see you doing things every single day, multiple events, multiple meetings. I've literally tried to make the city get involved with the dais to show that everybody's welcome to my party.
Thank you. And, as a quick follow-up, before we get to the 15-second comment, let me just quickly ask, you can just one or two words. How many hours a week do you think this job is going to require as far as attending meetings, attending other functions outside of the office, homework, and that sort of thing? If you don't have a number in mind, that's fine too, but we'll start again with Mr. Gannison. How many hours a week do you think this, Mr. Kaysen said 80 to 90. What's the number you think it's going to require?
Well, right now I'm working 90 myself, so, and I ain't the mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Wild.
I'm working 70 hours a week right now, but I think it's going to take quite a bit more.
Okay.
Quite a bit more.
And Mr. Ramsa.
I think it depends on what week it is. Some weeks we'll need more, some weeks we'll need less, and it's important to use your time wisely.
Okay.
I've actually drug out cow meetings with questions and caused the current mayor to miss dinner with his wife. So therefore, I know that it just depends. I mean, granted, if I think he's actually here from about 7 a.m. till about 7 p.m., so it's about 12 hours a day. So he's looking at roughly 60 hours a week committed, and then depends on what other things pop up, kind of like what he said, that you're just going to have to deal with it on a week-to-week basis.
Okay, and just as a little footnote, COW is a sort of an acronym for Committee of the Whole. It's a meeting of it's not really a COW meeting, it's a Committee of the Whole, where it's sort of an open discussion of issues when they're first presented to the City Council. Thank you. So does anyone want to take a 15 seconds to respond to what any of the other candidates have said? And if you want, raise your hand or just start talking. If not, fine. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on here. Let me see. We heard complaints during the city administrator debate last year about the power of the mayor's office affecting the council's access to information and decision-making. What is the proper balance of power? How would you run the office as mayor? And we'll start with Mr. Wild.
Well, like I said, the mayor and the city council have to work together, and they have to work together for what is right for the people of the city. You've got to do the right things, and I think that that can be brought forward, and everybody can go in unison. Loggerheads are gonna happen once in a while, and everything. But the bottom line is the infrastructure of this city. Our first providers that are on the scene need to be taken care of, and those are the most important things. And the downtown area needs to be taken care of too. And I think getting together with everybody on the city council and stuff, I think this can be easily taken care of and agreed upon things.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rams, sort of, what is your vision of the mayor's office vis-a-vis the city council?
Well, I think the mayor is obviously the most important part, but without the city council, nothing could get done. So as mayor, I have ideas that I think will make the city better, but I'm also open to ideas from the city council that I'll get behind and talk to members of the city councils to make my idea better. But at the end of the day, if they don't agree with what I think is going to work, I'm going to try and get my way or the highway on certain issues. You have to know when to bend and when not to bend. And
okay. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
I think the one thing that comes into play here is that the mayor is actually a full-time job that's actually at City Hall, where city council members are part-time, so right-away scheduling conflicts come into play. For example, Jim owns his HVAC company, Mike works at Walmart, Dickie does his with the Department of Education, where he has to be around the state or Washington, D.C. Annette happens to be a stay-at-home grandma that babysits all the time. Cook works for Workplace Services. I'm at Great Lakes. Scott's at the Harley-Davidson dealership. Mark has patients that he has to deal with. And then Jeff also works, for the state Workplace Services. So all of us obviously have our own part-time jobs, so scheduling comes into a huge conflict. As far as the city administrator fiasco, I was really involved with that. When we actually met with the Fort Collins manager at the Chamber of Commerce, he advised that city council in Fort Collins actually has dinner brought in an hour before the actual meeting. If, say, Monday night was to be set at 7 p.m. instead of 6 p.m., and everybody from council came in at 6 p.m., and dinner was actually prepared where the public could come in and eat with the council members and actually kind of start off where it would be more eating food and things like that. And then basically another thing is try to meet with your ward members every week for at least lunch or dinner on an independent ward so you can kind of get an idea of what council's vision is, not just the mayor.
Thank you. And Mr. Gannison?
Again, I will say, only way success can happen is with an open and free flow of communication. If there's no communication, there cannot be no success. The balance has to be balanced with that. The mayor needs to be in his role, and the council needs to be in their role, and there needs to be a balance. And in order to get that, it has to be communication. And I see that in this position as a mayor, you will have to work with, and they will have to work with, and come together for the community. This position is based and drive through the community. The voters voted this position in. We're not an administrator. I'm not hired. I am voted in. You are voted in. And I got to do what's right for the community. So I have to bring a balance. There has to be a balance in this job with the council and the mayor.
Thank you. And does anyone want to take an opportunity for the, well, wait, Mr. Wild, you haven't responded to this yet, have you? Oh, you have. I'm sorry. We started with you. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I'm losing track here. Then does anyone want to comment on what anyone else has said at this point?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm never going to make 65,000 people happy. There is no balance in this job.
Thank you. Okay, well. All right, so I guess now starting with Mr. Ramsa, what changes, if any, should be made to the city regulations, codes, fees, and those regulatory functions of all the many departments? What changes should be made in any of those that you can see?
One of the first things that I'd like to do when I get elected mayor is I'd like to change the liquor license policy. Currently, we have a limited amount of liquor license, and they ended up being sold or bid on for gargantuan amounts of money, and at the end of the day, that's halting business from succeeding. If we allow an unlimited liquor license policy, then any business that wants to come in and obtain one, they can, and they can open their doors and provide more jobs, more revenue, just a better city overall, because it just provides more places to eat too, honestly. Like, we need more places to eat, more bars, more places to go, bring more social life to Cheyenne, and with more liquor licenses, we can definitely do that. That's the one that comes to mind currently.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Johnson, what fees, regulations?
Basically, I mean, this question is very, very broad. Basically, I could ask, do you mean the International Building and Fire Codes that are practiced around the country, or are you talking about Article 6 of the UDC, which is regarding aesthetics? As far as fees go, planning fees haven't been updated since 2001. I mean, the new Walmart paid about $125 for its final plat. Former city staff members that have went south have said that our planning fees are a joke. They're a laughing stock in this region. If we send our comparative charts down to Colorado in comparison to them, basically we aren't even competitive anymore. Anybody that says Cheyenne's not in the business to do business really should check out these planning fees. That's just one place to start. I wanted to bring that up. I mean, looking at a Department of Labor inflation calculator from 2001 to 2016, I think the one I actually calculated, that planning fees needed to be at least increased by $102 to even keep up with current inflation from the last time they were updated. And then one thing that people probably don't think about, I mean, obviously what he said, he's going to have to go to the state for the liquor license. City council and the mayor have no control over that. And the other thing is you always have to be careful of Wyoming home rule, your limitations on law. If you're excessive over Wyoming state statute, you're fine. If you actually go lower than Wyoming state statute, you could be in court because of your limitations.
Thank you. Mr. Gannison?
This one's real easy and simple. First, I'd have to get in there and look at all of it. I mean, I could sit here and tell you there's a bunch of things. I can tell you about the sanitation department hand over fist, but until you sit down and look at all there, and then once you look at it, you have to see what benefits the city of Cheyenne, what does not benefit. That simple.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wild?
Well, you know what? I would have to agree with this gentleman right here because I do not know a lot of these. And, it would be something you'd have to look down at and see what's best for the city and best for the people of the city.
Okay, thank you. As a quick follow-up then, before we get to the 15-minute, one of the comments that we've been hearing, and I've heard here for about the 30 years I've lived here, is that the planning department and the regulations are too restrictive, and it keeps businesses from developing, and that. And do you think, in general, are there any regulations that should be eased up or facilitated or streamlined? Does anything pop out? I know a couple of you say you have to look first, but I'm going to give you a chance for anyone to say, yes, I would ease up.
Yeah. Basically, I will let anybody know. I've actually attended the Planning Commission meetings. I've worked with, looked at Parks and Rec when we did the open space, thinking that new development wasn't getting enough open space as far as greenway. I don't mean the greenway like a sidewalk, but actually green space like additional parks. And so I looked over what Jeff had presented, what he was going to present to Planning Commission, and that's one thing that people don't seem to take advantage of, is when the UDC was actually drafted, it can be amended annually. And so if anybody actually wants to come up now, it's July. This is actually reviewed in January and February. So you got 5 months to literally get your wish list together to cut down on the UDC. I mean, it is an amendable document. That was one of the reasons why it was passed. A lot of people don't realize that the Southeast Wyoming Home Builders and the Board of Realtors and them, they sold it to council. They believed that they had a document that literally was going to pass. This thing tanked, before it was actually drafted, and so they sent it back out to the, development community and said, okay, come up with something better, and this is what we got. It can be amended. That's one thing, this isn't so rigid as everyone makes it out, but you have to put in the work to actually get this done.
Okay, so you heard that, folks. Anyone who has a change they want to see in the Unified Development Code, now's the time. Here's the window opening. And does anyone else want to address thinking that regulations are too restrictive or codes are too restrictive?
They are. We opened up a church, and the church was so small, but we had to have 12 trees, and then once we put the 12 trees on the property, you couldn't see the front door. So it was like, well, do you put 12 trees and then people can't find the church because it's hidden behind all the trees? And we fought and fought and fought, and I think there's some things that are just a little excessive that they ask, and I think that's why a lot of businesses run south, or they'll go somewhere else just because of that.
Do we, the other two gentlemen, Mr. Wild and Mr. Romsey, do you want to add anything to that, or if not, we'll...
I'm sure there are some, but without having them all in front of me, it's hard to say which ones need to be changed, which ones don't, but once we get elected and figure that out, I'm sure we'll change them.
Okay, all righty. Mr. Wild, did you have anything to add to that?
I have nothing to add.
Sounds good, thank you. How important is it for the mayor and council to explain votes in regular council meetings on issues that have strong public interest? I've heard complaints that too many proposals get on the consent list and then they're just voted on. If the public can't be at meetings during the day, they have no clue, there's no explanation. And I guess it's a transparency question. Do you think the public gets enough explanation of issues and votes as they come up? Do too many end up on the consent list? And we'll start with Mr. Johnson.
Okay, as far as this, once again, come talk to your councilman. You cannot literally ask for something to be pulled off on consent agenda from home. You have to actually be here. All 9 of us, well, actually all 10 of us, well, no, the mayor actually doesn't usually do it, but all 9 of us are completely approachable on this. If you come forward and say you want something pulled off consent agenda, all we have to do is just say, hey, I'm pulling number 23 off consent. Can I get a second and another to follow up because somebody wants to come up to the podium and actually discuss it. It's very easy. We're all out there. As far as transparency, I got accused of this last night when the coal rolling thing happened. I walked in at 5:50. The chief of police caught me at 5:55. Basically, he said, Richard, when we do our staff report for this, we're going to cover the entire ordinance from the noise ordinance. As the noise ordinance is currently written with muffler alteration, every single Harley Davidson that pulls off the lot is going to be pulled over, because we're not just going to cover the part about emissions, we're going to cover the entire section of this ordinance. So literally I was like, okay, he was like, do you want to enforce it? And I was like, can you give me 2 weeks and I'll have it changed? But then Scott and the judge and I and the chief talked and was like, okay, let's kill it and start over. The one thing is we're trying to draft it. I mean, the mayor had already hit the gavel by the time, Scott and I kind of got done with the chief of police, and nobody even up here knew it. And so after Scott made the amendment to, repeal it, I second it. Everybody kind of got the idea that pretty much the sponsors of this were pulling out of it. But as far as an explanation, no, we didn't really say what had happened within the last 5 minutes. I got accused, they had a back room meeting. No, it took place right over there. I mean, it was in this room. It wasn't back meeting. We were all talking right there while it was going on, so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gannison?
I would say the more the public knows, the better it is. Reasoning is they have a right to know what decisions are being made in this office and through this council. You have a right to know all the decisions because, first, the mayor represents the public. And I think the current list is fine. I think we need to look at the list and there's issues. You need to look at the issues on the list and prioritize the list versus saying pull something off. There's probably everything on the list probably is fine. You just need to prioritize things. And I feel that the public needs to be fully informed, not just partial. Just as Mr. Johnson just said, it was there about the motorcycles, the noise, everybody. Man, if I just geared by a Harley, I was going to be upset if I had to take my muffler off, or get a ticket. So, I mean, it's good to know things before things get put into policy or become law or become ordinance or becomes codes. So it's good that the public should always know what we're thinking or what we're doing up here.
Thank you. Mr. Wild?
The mayor should be totally transparent with the community in any regards of any issue that is important to the people.
Okay. Do you want to address the issue of the consent list or just want to leave it at that?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Mr. Ramsa?
I think obviously the people have a right to know what's going on, and I think it's more than just a mayor and city council matter. All throughout the city, there are events and meetings going on that just aren't advertised very well, and I think that we obviously need to get more people's can't think of the word, input on what we're doing and if it's something that should go through, if it's not. And with the ordinance that they were just talking about, I would have been very interested to see the meeting after that with all the Harley owners in town coming in to being like, why are we getting ticketed for this? Because they didn't know. And obviously that was one where there just wasn't enough time, but obviously you should make time. Whoever was ringing the gavel or setting the pace of the meeting obviously should have been told to slow down. So they could be explained instead of just making everyone look like they were bad politicians making backroom deals.
Does anyone want to take 15 seconds to
It sounds like that was what it was going to be.
respond to that?
Yeah,
Yes.
15 seconds, basically. An ordinance cannot be put on consent agenda. Ordinances are usually what are the hot button objects, and you cannot put those on consent. What goes on consent is typically like bids and contracts and things like that have been discussed in the previous week's committee meeting. That's what goes on consent. So, like, say for if the Sky Bridge went on, you could pull that off because that would be a hot button, but it would also be a contract bid.
Okay. All right. So, yes, you want to?
Why? Why can't they be put on consent to be talked about?
Ordinances, basically, because a lot of them have to do with annexations, zoning, platting, that are huge things as far as so the neighbors can actually come in. Like if somebody has something they want to work on a development, and so if so that the neighbors always have that avenue to come up and speak if they want to stop a specific development from coming into their neighborhood. The chicken ordinances, coal rolling, spitting on the sidewalks, all the other stuff that we literally do. Is going to generate interest in the community. James will write about it. He gets people here, the radio, all the different media outlets. And so those are things that you don't put on consent strictly because you know that there's probably going to be public input. So when the mayor calls out for public comment, everybody can come up and actually express it.
Okay.
So there you go. And the person with the gavel is the mayor. So so Mr. Ramsa, if you win, the gavel will be in your hand and you'll be able to wield it as you see.
Yeah, and you see that yellow book, that's called Robert's Rule of Order, and so, yeah, it is
Within
practice
limits,
of your-
within the rules,
Yeah.
correct. All right. Where do potholes fall in the list of priorities? Was that? Pardon? Okay. Where do potholes fall in the list of priorities for Cheyenne? Should the fifth penny take care of roads first before anything else? Because as we all know, the fifth penny is now used, and there are agencies that rely on it year after year. So do potholes rise to the level of they should have the fifth penny? And I guess you can expand to see if you think if not the whole fifth penny, then where? And we'll start with Mr. Gannison, minute and a half.
Everyone wants to talk about potholes. My car's being worked on now. It's a brand new Lincoln, and it broke a shock because of a pothole. But at the same time, I feel that it would be only fair to look at things, everything. I'm not there. Mr. Johnson knows a whole bunch more because he's on the council, but I'm not there. But when I get there, I'd like to see everything be prioritized, not just because it's 20 people needs a pothole fixed or not, but if there's rabbits that need to be taken care of, or the geese got out of control, or I mean, there's so many other things that we probably need to look at without just saying gavel potholes. I mean, I would not saying that it's not a priority, but at the same time, I think you need to look at everything and come up with a solution or a plan before you just say one entity or one thing.
Thank you. Mr. Wild.
Our infrastructure is very, very important. It's not very important. It's one of the most important things. And this is on Mayor Kason's watch, and he needs to take care of this before he leaves office.
Do you want to respond to the fifth penny question?
Fifth penny question, a percentage of it, if it's needed for infrastructure, is very important. And I would say 20% of that to go for infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramsa.
With regards to the fifth penny, I think the fifth penny tax should be used for the most important things, the ones that need the money the most. So obviously, without looking at what else is currently being used with the fifth penny or what could be used with the fifth penny, I can't obviously put it in a rank. But when I started my mayoral campaign, I came up with 5 or 6 key issues that I wanted to fix, and potholes and roads are one of them. That is something that if after my 4 years in office I have not fixed, do not reelect me, because that's one of the key issues that I will fight tooth and nail, that the city council, the state of Wyoming, will have to throw me out of whatever building I'm in to get me to stop talking about potholes that need to be fixed. I just drove here, had to dodge at least 8 of them, and it's the same ones. You can see where they refilled it and then it caved back in over and over again. It's the same people doing the same thing over and over again that's just costing taxpayers money and is destroying our cars. And it's ridiculous, and I'm over it. So if you elect me, I'm going to fix potholes. Not forever, obviously, but better than what they are now.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Johnson?
Well, last year as a city councilman, I think I've actually turned in more than any other person. I had over 200 fixed that they were patched. You can probably give a lot of that to me as far as we spent, when I had Vicky pull up when we were doing the $100,000 pothole political maneuver to show that we were good people, which was ridiculous. But anyways, $352,000 I think is what was spent in hot and cold patch last year with Knife River of what the city actually purchased to fill the potholes. So when it comes down to that, fifth penny revenues are down. 80% goes to streets already. 20% goes to services, Camilla Shelter, Safe Harbor, things of that nature. Those 20% of fifth penny sales tax actually go to other services. 80% is what's currently spent on the street. If he would like, he can send an email to Vicky Nemechek. They actually do have a priority list of streets that they would like to put on a hot list to get repaired. She kind of covered what are called road gators, where the road's kind of already starting to pop up, but it hasn't completely popped, so that they can cut those out and get those actually filled. City Council didn't like the warranty on the one-man pothole machine a couple months ago, so that actually failed strictly because we were going to have the contract for 6 months. They were worried about a clause in the warranty, therefore it failed strictly because of a warranty issue. We could have literally pulled more people off of the street crews, put them behind this one-man unit, probably got more work done, but because of a warranty it failed. We have 2 crews that literally work. Sorry.
Well, we're into the 15-second optional. If you want to add anything or comment on what the other person has said at this point.
I have a question for Mr. Johnson. You mentioned how many potholes you guys fixed the previous year. Do you know how many of those have re-popped up? Like how many have broken
Probably
down by
about
now?
70%. The water will literally go into the hole. It'll pop out. I mean, that's just the given. What I wanted to say was, unfortunately, we have ourselves to blame. If we're not spending enough money locally, our fifth penny revenues are down. I encourage people not to shop in Colorado every week, to spend locally, and I do not mean mom and pop. I mean in Cheyenne, in Laramie County. That's where your fifth penny goes to. You wonder what, the only thing you're buying is gas before you go to Colorado, and every tax dollar you spend in Colorado is fixing their stuff. I guilt you all and myself that anytime I go out of town, that literally I am contributing my own problem. For everybody that tells me about a pothole, I'm literally leaving town and spending money elsewhere and not at home where I'm actually could fix my own infrastructure.
Okay, thanks. A popular response. Does anyone want to comment further or sum up? Or
Sure, I do.
Okay.
Richard, it's not legal here.
well,
Ricks, I've told you before, you and I are obviously your shirt, and everyone knows I'm a normal petitioner. So.
okay, so there was a not so veiled reference to the legalization of marijuana just made there. But I think Mr. Johnson was referring to all kinds of purchases in Colorado, not just of that variety.
Well, that's the only reason I go to Colorado.
Okay. The downtown merchants would be appreciate that. So just I guess shifting gears a little bit, because as a reaction from the audience, roads, infrastructure is always on people's minds, and things like maybe more amenities that aren't quite so, you don't drive on them every day. What about historic preservation? What about, and so I'm going to ask you just really briefly, it was a question from the audience, where does that fall in a list of priorities? And I guess we'll start with Mr. Wild.
Well, historical preservation, that's an utmost precedent. This is a historical city, but then you have to look at both sides of this too. If you've got damage to your infrastructure and it's busting out people's shocks and stuff, that needs to be taken care of first, but still the historical value of the city, those places need to be taken care of, and it's in my heart that I associate's degree in arts and sciences, and history is one of my favorite things in life, and historical artifacts, historical areas, forts, things like that, even the Capitol and that they need to be taken care of. That's for my heart.
Okay. Mr. Romson.
I think historical landmarks and buildings need to be preserved, but at the same time, we have to realize that we can't save everything. And sometimes we have to prioritize whether or not the sentimental value or the historical value of something is worth the value of what could take its place. So I think you have to walk that line of, is it worth saving and preserving, or is it worth demolishing and putting up something new? And I think that's something where it would be a case-by-case basis. I think that's something that I would be very interested in, to save certain things, but also if the public demanded that we tear something that was near and dear to my heart, then we got to take it down. But if the city said no, if the people said no, save it, and I wanted to tear it down, then we don't tear it down. You have to know when history needs to be preserved and when you have to pave the way for the future.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
The one thing all of us seem to forget up here is most of these historic structures are private property, unless you start really throwing around eminent domain. Because if the structural integrity of the building is still intact, where it can be sold and resold, and it's actually on private property, there's not a lot you can actually do. If they are upkeeping it, it may not meet its historical integrity. Actually, it's funny, it's 6 o'clock right now, and Historic Preservations Board's actually meeting right there. I could probably have Christine Bird or them, because since Megan and James, I think James is out of town, but James and Christine would probably give you the best example of what goes on. I was wondering where you were at. So I've talked to Jan about this several times as far as when it comes down to historic preservation. What is the social aspect of this building, the historical aspect, the cultural aspect, the economical impact? Obviously, when it comes down to it, we're not going to tear down the state capitol or the depot. Those are two structures that you're going to definitely see stay. They have, they're identified with the community. I mean, they're sold as part of our landmark. They're part of our marketing campaign. That's why so much effort was put into the revitalization of the Capitol as well as the depot. James could obviously give you way more in-depth conversation in regards to historic tax credits that can become available due to remediation. The other thing that comes up is in historic districts, you don't have to meet some of the ADA compliancy that comes into it, especially on elevator shafts and bathrooms. It might be along the structural support beams of the actual building. Fire suppression's another story.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Gannison.
I'm so glad this question was asked. Being on the Housing Community Development Board, we were actually one of the first people who funded the depot. And when we walked in there and they showed me where the slaves got off the train, I felt like, wow, we've got to keep this. We were called idiots. Why would you sink money into something that dumb and that stupid? But it meant a lot to us. It's our culture. It is the culture of Cheyenne, Wyoming. The Buffalo Soldiers. It's our culture. So anything that's historic, I love to see historical buildings. I mean, I love to see them, and I love to just reminisce and see if you can picture somebody in the window, a grandma, a father, or children playing, or even the horses running down the street, the cattle running. That's why we moved here. We're from California.
Okay.
76, man. We rolled in and was like, Lord have mercy. But we ain't never left because we love Cheyenne that much. I live here. I love it. I play here. I dine here. I eat here. I raise my children and now my grandchildren. Okay. And I want to tell them all about Cheyenne. Was Buffalo Wild Bill here or something? I don't know, but I want to tell them that.
All right. Thank you. Anyone want to add? Okay.
Just a quick mention. We have a lot of tours around town, trolley tours and the wagon tours that actually talk about historical buildings. There's a church downtown that has a dead body bricked into it. And another popular thing, I'm sure all of you have seen the new Pokemon Go game. I am playing it currently, and they have a lot of landmarks used as Pokemon gyms and Pokemon stops. So it gets kids around to look at all these cool landmarks that are still around. So if you want to go see some cool landmarks, go take a trolley ride or go become a Pokemon master. Let's go.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Wild.
Quite a few years back in the city of Seattle, sort of broke my heart that this gentleman was born in this house there, and it was a little house. It's 20 foot by 20 foot, and his name was Jimi Hendrix. And the city of Seattle could not save that house. They demolished it. And, it just made me sad because a lot of people don't know it, but Jimi Hendrix was a paratrooper in the 101st Airborne. Airborne all the way.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, we have time for one more question, and then we'll get into our closing. And I'm going to sort of ask you, it's going to be sort of a multi-part question. I guess you can answer whatever piece of it you want. I wanted to touch on downtown revitalization, investing in current business, new business, because it seems to also be right up there with potholes as far as a lingering issue. And I guess, what can Cheyenne do, and I guess what should Cheyenne do? So if you could talk about things that the city could do, and I guess maybe what the city should spend public public money on and what should be left to private enterprise. So, and if you want to address the Children's Museum, that might be part of your answer. So again, I know this is so, you know, you touch on all of those or any one piece of those that you think will get to the heart of where you stand on your issues.
Are you talking in a way about what would revitalize downtown, revenue coming in to the city?
Okay, what would help, I mean, assuming this is one of your priorities, and the answer might be it's not, but assuming it is, revitalization, investment in downtown, strengthening existing businesses, getting new businesses there, what is the role of public money and a city government to, in fact, achieve that? Is that a proper role for city government? And again, if you want to address the Children's Museum, because in fact that debate is going on whether it should be private money or be publicly supported. So again, I apologize for the multi-part of that, but this gives you a chance to answer any or all of those pieces. And we'll start with Mr. Ramsa.
Okay, so downtown. I love places downtown. I shop there regularly. There are great local businesses down there. Ernie November's, Paramount Cafe, Phoenix Books, 17th Street Salon and Spa, Infused Cupcakery, 2 doors down. All of these wonderful places that we need more places like that down there. We just do. There are a few ways to get that. Obviously, I mentioned the liquor license before, which was brought up. That's a state thing. And if I can't do it as mayor, then I guess I go bug Matt Mead for a couple hours every day until he passes it.
Good luck.
You got to get the buildings upkeep. That's one of the failures of the Downtown Development Board. They've made promises. The one that's running for mayor in the next section has made promises to business owners down there that she hasn't kept as Downtown Development Board member. And the owners of the buildings just aren't keeping them up. We need to fix that. That's one of my main platforms as a candidate, is to fix the empty buildings and the empty houses around town. And downtown will be the hot point, the first place that I go to fix it. And we need more businesses down there, make it easier for them to get down there. The Children's Museum sounds like a wonderful idea in the worst location possible it could be. I would not support city money going to it in its current location. If they wanted to move the location, I would be all for giving them money.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, I actually helped them. I'm a volunteer for the Children's Museum. I've assisted with the last 2 whole lot of musics. I kind of pitched the idea to Amy, so I try to help out. I also go to, even though I'm not the official city council rep, I've been to every one but 2 of the DDA meetings since January of 2015. This is one thing to get out there as a sales pitch. There are community block development grants. You can apply with the DDA for facade improvement grants. There's all different types of things. They can assist you with tax credits if you want to do revitalization. As far as the city's role, usually it's let the economic development arms, do the sales pitch, try to get everything in order, and then come to the city. So when it actually comes to the building codes and the fire codes and everything else that goes along with it, so that you're literally prepared for it. So I'd actually have more open communication with the existing economic development arms to let them bring it in. One of the ideas before they had, as far as a dedicated client in the Heinz building, is I was like, well, if you need a dedicated client, this is one where the city could come in, literally just take out an office space or take out a floor of office spaces to say, hey, we're going to do ADA compliancy in City Hall, so we're going to move some of our staff to the Heinz building, and literally, therefore, the city of Cheyenne became a dedicated client at the same time that remediation efforts could go on around it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Organison.
I like
Did we restate the question, or do you kind of get that?
I'm ready for this
Okay,
one.
thanks.
I like to do things in parables, but GID, grow, identify, and develop. It may be time to look at the findings that the city has done studies on the city, and the downtown development have done studies. It's time maybe to sit down and look at some of those studies and see what can we and what will benefit the citizens of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Everything that looks promising you don't want, because it brings and it attracts different things. So there's a lot of things you want to make sure you prioritize. We already know our city's full of heroin. Our city's full of meth. So we need to make sure that we push our youth closer to that. So the museum would be awesome. Kind of give the children a sense of pride. Give the citizens a sense of pride. Location, it needs to be downtown somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I know it needs to be downtown. And we could, also look at things. Here's the thing: if you can bring bigger businesses, but you got to attract them. They're not going to come for just because you got a McDonald's and a Taco Bell. You have to attract other places, with other things. A rec center, more police. Got to have security if you're going to have big business. 11 police officers short. Don't cut the mustard.
Thank you. Mr. Wild?
I'm all for bringing business to Cheyenne and everything. We are at crossroads to the west. We have I-25, I-80. 30 years ago, Tom Bowman said we needed to have another airport. He was just shot down in flames. It's one thing that this city needs to look at, and look at it very well. This airport is stagnant to the economy of Cheyenne. If we had plenty of land to the south and southwest of here where we could put a new airport, okay? This is also an Army National Guard and Air National Guard base where there could be possible funding for another airport. This airport would not only just serve Wyoming, it would also serve the panhandle of Nebraska. It would serve northern Colorado too. And because this new terminal they're going to have out here isn't going to bring a bigger carrier in, not at all. It's just going to stay stagnant like it is. But a new airport would bring in a bigger carrier and would bring in a lot more people, and it would therefore bring more revenue to this city and this community. And I think that's one thing that needs to be looked into. And the other thing is, too, once this airport is changed, that's prime real estate. Prime real estate. Sell that off, make money for that. And, hey, I'm progressive. You got to think about things like this. But this is something that's going to have to be thought of down the road.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramsa? Yeah. I'm sorry, we started with you. Okay, I'm sorry. But is there anyone who wants to respond to what anyone else has said? Okay?
So what Mr. Wolf said, Wild, sorry.
There you go.
I worked at
Do I look like a wolf?
a little bit. I worked at Papa John's Pizza as a delivery man a few years ago, and I delivered on base. And every time, no matter what day it was, no matter what time of day it was, I'd deliver pizza, and there's always be a car filled with airmen. Let's go to Fort Collins. Let's go to Fort Collins. You can talk about we need to bring an airport in. We need to do this. We need to do that to bring people in. No, you just got to get businesses in. Look at Old Town Fort Collins. They're local businesses that just bring people down there. They can walk and shop. They can get a meal. They can get a drink. They can have their Thursday night music festivals. They can do all this stuff. You have to bring people down to an area to get people to shop there. And we're not doing that. We just don't have the businesses to do it. And it's not just the city's fault. It's the owners of the property's fault. We have to make the owners of the empty buildings and the dilapidated buildings fix the buildings and get tenants. We have to get more businesses in. And I think saying we need a new airport, whether or not we need it, isn't going to bring more business. And anytime I hear the airport, I just think about all those trees we cut down. I'm tired of saying, let's cut down trees. Let's move the beautiful bear carving from the road to fix some mundane thing that doesn't need to be fixed. Just save the trees, save the beer statue, and let's bring businesses back to downtown, back to Cheyenne, and make people come here for more than just Frontier Days.
Okay, thank you. That was a little more than 15 seconds, but I appreciated the
I'm a talker.
amplification. Thank you. Did anyone else want to add or comment?
As far as, since they brought up the airport, even though that wasn't downtown, most of you probably don't know about the Colgan crash in Buffalo in 2009 and the Part 117 ruling that took place in in the U.S. Congress that gave first officers 1,500 hours to equal a captain. There is a huge pilot reduction in worldwide when you come to flying on 117 rulings. When it comes down to, there's just not enough staff. The regional carriers don't pay enough to bring in new people. When that ruling passed in 2011, they basically hired every single captain from the regional airlines to put into the big guys. The Delta, the Southwest, the Americans, the Uniteds, all opened their floodgates for hiring, and everyone left the regional carriers. So therefore, everybody had to go to Part 135, which means that you are reduced to you're basically reduced to 9 seats, and you don't really get too much outside of propeller service. That's another thing that comes on. There's very, very few regional jet services. American Eagle being one of them, that's now called Envoy, already has been here, taken the subsidy, cut down the trees, which I could go into fuel retardant and all that stuff with the National Guard of how much they left. You want to talk about giving a tree for a tree? You literally couldn't take, your takeoff alternates basically did not compromise the amount of fuel retardant, fire retardant that they were putting into the aircraft to actually take off to go fight a forest fire. Because literally, when you actually configure the entire landscape, they go off of the ground to air service. So if there was one tree and it actually was to be a crash, it would smash right into them. And that's one of the things that American Eagle, when they sent out their specs, required to be done in case they were, had a full load of fuel, full passenger load, and full baggage. Now we can't really get anything past a 9-seat aircraft. A Pilatus and a Saab, because of how small the aircraft are going to be unpressurized. You're not going to be able to go much further than Denver.
So apparently it's complicated.
Right. And
Yeah.
basically, as far as, this is what the airport board faces by bringing in a new regional carrier. Allegiant was one of the ones to look at Mesa and look at Las Vegas, but with a pilot strike that happened right then, they kind of pulled out of the market.
So it sounds like we have a semi-expert up here. So if you want to know further about it, I would assume Mr. Johnson would love to have a cup of coffee with you. But it is good to hear sort of the yes but kind of a to the whole air service thing. Does anyone else want to add anything about the downtown, about city funding for projects? Okay. We might have time for one more question if answers are terse. So I will say that this is from the audience, and we're not able to get to it. So we can get through this, and before we get to the final comments, and it's about enforcement of ordinances. What good are ordinances and that are not enforced? And the person to help you out mentioned texting, apparently, or talking on the phone. The texting is a state law. City limits, it's talking on the phone. I guess you could talk about any of the traffic laws, traffic ordinances in the city. The mayor does appoint the police chief, and so there is a direct line from the mayor to policies in the police station, in the police department. So if anyone wants, I guess, we'll start with Mr. Johnson. Enforcement, what as mayor would be important to do to make sure ordinances and laws are enforced?
Well, first person, and I try to axe every one of them. No, as far as, the first thing I have to do is, we are the luckiest community to have Chief Kozak as our chief of police. This man is completely open. He has to deal with me. And the chief and I, since the chickens, since the weapons, since everything, I deal with this man on a daily basis. I sent him an email when I heard that he had put in for Duluth saying, I hope you don't get it. And then when he didn't get it, I said, I'm glad Cheyenne gets to keep you. As far as enforcement, you can say 11 officers, but like I kind of covered with the coal rolling, there's more to laws, and it goes from federal to state to municipality on your enforcement. There's 19 chapters of city code that I've been trying to hack to pieces. There's literally too much laws. We need to get rid of a bunch of them.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Gannison.
I would say there is a lot of ordinances that people don't know, and I'll just say sanitation is one. All trash must be bagged. Not enforced, but it must. No grass is to be in your can. It's in there. We had a code enforcement office. We do have him. He's very good, but he's 1 or 2 men on a task, and I believe that department's just in the wrong department. Of course, you need the police. We've had to call them. I remember Cornicky had a building over here, and the bomb squad at the time, Chief Feck was the chief, and he had to come out. We were underneath his house, and he had bricks holding up a house, and we're under their sanitation workers taking all his stuff. Unsafe environment, but there needs to be codes enforced so that there's safety for the public, whether we want to believe it or not. If you're driving down the road and I'm driving in the garbage truck and that piece of plastic comes out on your windshield, oh my God, what happened? You will get in an accident. Well, it's loose because it was loose in the trash, not because it's loose in the truck. So we do need to enforce codes and have someone to do that diligently. Emmett's doing a good job, but bigger office maybe.
Thank you. Mr. Wild, what about enforcement of ordinances and laws? And if you want to refer to the cell phone usage or not.
Sure. First, my grass is not going to be in that can, I can tell you that. The one thing, cell phones, I have a CDL, okay, and it's a nasty fine to use a cell phone and be driving, especially for us that are professional drivers. That definitely needs to be enforced. There are a lot of ordinances that need to be enforced, and then there's some that shouldn't even be ordinances, you know. So, and there's so many. That list is, Richard. How many things are on that list? How many?
I axed 5 this week.
Okay. So, okay. So anyway, there you go.
Okay. And Mr. Ramsa, what about diligent enforcement of ordinances, laws?
If it's a law, it needs to be enforced, and whether or not they're need to be hacked away, they have to be enforced while they're on the books. It's a way to get more police officers to help the city with the fines. I've gotten tickets before that I don't feel I should have gotten and had to pay them. So they should be enforced. The police need to do that. Obviously, I think we've all seen where we're sitting there and the cop just doesn't pull over someone that should be pulled over. They have to do their job, and we have to do our job as mayor, whoever gets elected, to help cut down the ordinances that don't need to be there and help enforce the ones that do.
Okay, I think unless there's a burning response here, I think maybe at this point we really kind of need to get to closing comment.
Give you an update. Actually, as far as police enforcement, you'll see it on the next agenda. I've worked with the chief of police. The community service officers that you see around under state statute, they now have a little more freedom, and so they can actually respond to non-injury crashes. And so a real police officer can actually go take care of another crime, and the CSOs can actually report to just fender benders.
Okay, so, well, and I appreciate that everyone trying to be terse there. And just a reminder that at the end of the evening, you can come back and comment on further and also on what the next group has said. So if you have a burning thing to add, you can, keep that in mind. But you could also use your closing time, 90 seconds, a minute and a half, which we will start with Mr. Gannison. So and feel free to use the last minute and a half any way you want to sum up or to comment further.
All right, I'm going to sum it all up with grow, identify, and develop. We need to grow as a city, but we have to identify what we need to grow. One thing I identified was we need a rec center. All of us here had a mother or father. Some mother was in the kitchen baking goods, and we could come home and get fresh cookies, but the youth today do not have that. Their mothers and fathers are working 2 and 3 jobs. So the youth are left home alone. They're left to idle minds, and idle minds is the devil's workshop, whether you want to believe it or not. An idle mind will get any child in trouble. We have to support our youth, and we have to develop our youth. They're going to be sitting up here, and if they're undeveloped, what do we have? Yes, some of us will be gone. I got one foot in the grave already, but I'm trying to leave a legacy for my grandchildren. I don't want them in a city that we're not proud of. I don't want them in a city that we have not invested in. I don't want them in a city where there's no growth. I don't want them in a city where it's a dead end. I don't want them to be liable for my mistake or whoever's mistake. I want this city to be a place of change, a future, positive growth, development, rec center. Our children need that, and they deserve that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Wild, a minute and a half to sum up, closing statement.
Yes, I agree with this gentleman. When I talked to the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle, I told them that this city needed a recreation center, and I said it needed it located in the center of the city. And one of the gentlemen told me, well, Rex has been shot down twice, and, there's that old adage, third time's a charm. And anyway, a city that does not invest in its youth is not investing in its future. That's all there is to it. And I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having me, and it's been a very, very special evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsa.
One thing that I'd like everyone here to do is think about who you're going to vote for at the end of the day, but don't decide, because you've only heard a few of the topics that we actually all care about. And a lot of the times you just hear the hot button issues that will make you want to vote for someone, like, oh, he doesn't support the rec center, or she doesn't support the children's museum, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not always about the first impression or who has all the knowledge based on prior experience, or who has the most qualifications, who's been working in government the longest. It's who's going to support the ideas that you want to have supported. So take your time, listen to everyone, and make sure that you vote for what you think is best for the city of Cheyenne, whether or not that's me or not. As long as you vote with a knowledge-based and with faith in that candidate, then you've done your job, and I am proud of you. As it comes to the youth of today, I still consider myself a youth of today, and I think we have to look toward my generation and the generations to come and what is going to keep us around. So many people are just leaving after college and high school, and we got to keep those people around, and you have to decide, what Cheyenne do you want to see 10, 20 years from now, and who's going to help get you there, whether it's one of us four or one of the four still to come or the three that aren't here. Make sure you put Cheyenne first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, basically, as mayor, guess what? I'm the only one that actually goes on because I'm a write-in campaign, so the primary doesn't really matter to me because guess what? Everybody that loses, I'm probably going to take some of their votes, and I write in for the general election. As far as things that go on with this city, I actually like the question that you guys asked about the 3 important issues when you had us do our written essay. And so this is what I wrote was my principal issue in the city of Cheyenne. And I believe the principal issue is fear. Fear of growth, fear of change, fear of field mice, fear of raccoons, fear of bike lanes, fear of roundabouts, fear of chickens, fear of Fort Collins, fear of a rec center, fear of sky paths, fear of neon cowgirls, abandoned buildings, outdoor activities, crowds, taxes, new age religion, taking my guns, alternative medicine, and most importantly, the unknown. Since I have been a city council person, I've done my best to change the mindset of the individuals in this community that we have, and to show that we have activities for everyone. In 2015, I attended 282 events. I went to concerts, dinners for MLK, homeless children, and CASA, dog shows, festivals, and tons of unassigned public meetings. By leading by example, I exhibited, if you look, you can find things to do. I'm currently involved in fundraising for the Children's Museum, the Friendship Playground GoFundMe, a skateboard contest for Big Brothers Big Sisters, the creation of a new dog park, the Airport Public Relations Committee in regards to car racing and music, and gathering support for a nonprofit athletic activity center. I muster volunteers to clean up the Greenway. DDA adopt a program, the skate park cleanup with local firefighters, and raised over $4,000 in goods and services to be raffled for the restoration of the airport fountain, and solicit over $800 for the Friendship Playground on Super Day. I'm an active petitioner in reforming Wyoming's marijuana laws, and was one of a 4-person team that started the Cheyenne
Okay,
Rewrite
thank you.
program.
Time. Okay. All right. And
Silence.
And to let you know that what Mr. Johnson referred to is the league also has a voter guide, and it's on the local page of the State League website, wyominglwv.org, and you can. And we asked everyone to talk about their 3 main issues, so you can read all of the answers by all these, and actually all the candidates for city offices, for legislative offices, and for county commissioner. It's all there on the website. So just to let you know. In the meantime, I think let's go ahead and thank the candidates for showing up and doing their best to answer your questions.